As we already know from the video about 6x6 trek haul, there are still places in our world that are not densely populated by humans, just pure untouched nature with no roads at all. So, in order to go across these places and accomplish tasks, highly manoeuvrable and capable transport is required. Hence, the Swedish Ministry of Defence faced this challenge sharply back in the 1970s. And while trek haul represents a modern form of heavy-duty off-road vehicles, the tracked Caterpillar track from the 70s, the BV206, is a true and reliable representation of the old school. Today we're going to put this thing to test to see how far did the new technology move ahead of it, or whether it has even moved at all. So, it all started with the Swedish Ministry of Defence initiating a competition for the creation and production of highly manoeuvrable and amphibious off-road vehicles specifically designed to carry out special operations by the Swedish Army. And as we know, Sweden, like any other Scandinavian countries, is known for its northern harsh winter climate. So the availability had to be top-notch since the equipment was being built for the military needs. In 1974, a Swedish company won the competition and went on to develop what is now known as one of the best all-terrain vehicles in the world. So the BV is a two-section vehicle with an active trailer. The first cabin is a four-seat cabin with a power unit in it, and the second cabin is a fully versatile platform on which any sort of structure could be mounted. A second cabin, like in our case, featuring another 8 passenger spaces, or it could be swapped for a cargo platform. A drilling rig or tank or some sort of excavator could be installed instead of this cabin. So in total it could transport up to 12 armed soldiers. Moreover, its compact design allowed for transportation in cargo planes and airlifting by helicopters. Certainly it wasn't only the military who acquired it. BV proved to be a great interest to anyone requiring the ability to navigate through mud and rough terrains. The vehicle turned out to be so successful that it gained popularity in more than 37 countries around the world, and it was successfully employed in various conditions ranging from Arctic to tropical. There is even records of combat experience with the Canadian forces during the Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan. So let's break down this off-road into pieces. The connection between the sections allows for their mutual movements in 3 planes. It's going to be horizontal, vertical and around the longitudinal axis. The articulated frame ensures a constant contact of the tracks with the surface, where the vertical cylinder significantly expands its capabilities too. Same as the trek haul's low pressure tyres, BV has an extra wide rubber tracks which provide extremely low pressure on the ground, only 120 grams per centimetre squared. For comparison, the average pressure caused by me just standing on the ground will be at least 3 times that value. So this is what makes it so effective, the ability to travel on any type of ground or surface without causing almost no damage to the vegetation cover and getting stuck. Controlling this thing is actually not that difficult at all, it is pretty intuitive. The steering wheel turns smoothly, but you always got to watch out for the trailer at the back. But the sketchiest feeling you get here is the body roll angle, especially from the inside the cabin, going through the puddles and deep spots. Feels like you got to do a front flip every time you go down. I think it's mainly because there is no hood in front of you, so you are sitting right at the very front of where you are heading, so going over bumps feels as you are tackling a joint hill, because you either just see the ground or just the skies with the tips of the trees. Unlike the trek haul with enormous size wheels, you sit much lower to the ground, which makes all the obstacles seem a lot bigger. But that doesn't make it any less capable. It goes over the same potholes and climbs just as good as the trek haul. The cabin just sways so much, it's not even funny how bad it is. I feel it's slightly less than the rest of the crew because there's at least some support and something I can grab to, but it's certainly don't invite those sitting in the back and a cameraman trying to hold the camera straight. Either way, here the space is still manageable compared to what is going on in the rear. Sitting in the back module, not only can you not see where you're going, but you also get unexpectedly tossed around it. Unfortunately, BV is not street legal everywhere, which is a big loss to Trekkor, but I did hear that in some countries they do allow for rubber trucks on public roads. Still, the vehicle can swim, with the exception it cannot exceed 5 km/h and relies solely on rotation of the tracks. It has the waterline level somewhere where my chest is located, which is pretty high, but it does leak a lot, so if you would actually go for a swim in it, then be sure that you in the cabin will definitely get soaked. But apart from you getting wet, there is nothing to worry about since BV has the pumps to pump the water out of the cabin. With a carb weight of 4.3 tons and a full load exceeding 2 tons, this is the best ratio among all terrain vehicles. In this regard, it certainly holds a significant competitive advantage over the Trekkor Vega, but gotta say, even that the Trekkor has a lower payload ability, it is almost 1.5 tons lighter than this thing. Unlike a tank, the BV turns not by slowing down one side, but thanks to the rotation of a two-piece structure. Therefore, there are no distinctive splayed track marks on the ground from the turning, like the ones left by tanks. Despite its brutal army exterior, the body of the truck is made out of fiberglass rather than metal. Thought you wouldn't guess it from the initial looks. The sandwich technology is employed here similar to the way it's done in modern Trekkors from the previous video, where the walls are made out of multi-layered structure with a foam in between the panels. This construction allows for the lightweight track that is retaining heat and has enhanced floating characteristics. Here we have a petrol engine and the automatic transmission borrowed from the well-known car makers. These engines prove to be dependable and not too picky about the quality of fuel, and customers can pick the engine they like, such as the V-shaped 6-cylinder Ford gasoline engine or inline 5 or 6-cylinder Mercedes diesel engines. So the choice of the engine was not always down to the price, but to the characteristics it would offer. For example, a 2.8 litre Ford engine may not have as much torque as a diesel engine, but it makes the vehicle more speed focused. But there is always going to be a balance between torque and driving capabilities. It is not always about mud and rocks, and speed does make a difference. With this thing you can expect to be going at max 50 km/h, in reality about 30, which is fine for the tracked Caterpillar off-roader, but not if you have to cross half the desert. And all of this powertrain is sitting under the driver's cabin, in the middle between the first and second rows. Cover simply tilts to the side, giving you access to the entire engine. It definitely comes in handy when repairing under rain. No need to go out and stand in the mud to figure out why it has the engine stalled. But that makes the cabin a very loud place to be while driving. Definitely BV feels a lot quieter outside than from the inside. The engine is paired with a 4-speed Allison automatic gearbox, which is another advantage over the manual Trekkor. That's for sure quite impressive, especially for the off-road vehicle from the 70s. Not many cars during those years could afford to have an automatic gearbox, and here it is. The setup is highly similar to the farming tractor, making sure that the trailer is pulling along and not just dragging at the back. So we basically have the power coming from the engine to the gearbox, which is then transmitted to the transfer case off the front cabin. Then through the drive shaft it goes to the rear cabin differential, which in turn is transferred to these gears that rotate the tracks. Same brutal military style is present here as an outside, but to be honest the driver's place is kind of cozy. Thanks to the articulated design, developers were able to eliminate the need for the gear levers and install a standard steering wheel, which is pretty good news for me since I expected to see a bunch of handles like in a crane cabin, especially after reviewing the modern Trekkor, which has sticks poking out everywhere. Since it is a heavy-duty type of vehicle, there are a few interesting switches and indicators present. One for the battery heating, emergency petrol pressure, cabin water drainage pump, intercom, additional heater switch and V-buster. And just like with any military vehicles of those years, the wiring is visible all around the whole car, all secured with the bolts and screws. Nothing like that is surprising here, especially after reviewing the Soviet cars. Certainly sitting in such a green cabin and looking through those small windows, especially with the driver's place being separated from the rest of the passengers, does evoke the military vibes here. Feels like driving an armed tank. So the rear of the first unit has 2 seats as normal, and the third is positioned in the middle and folds out to the level of my shoulder. I'm sure you can guess what it is used for. A soldier would open a roof hatch, climb the seats and engage in a fire with some probably machine gun installed here. Otherwise it's a perfect spot for hunting now. So the back hatch is an additional door, probably used for evacuation of that thing what's finally drowned. But other than that, it's just an empty box with a heater and electrical outlets. Oh yeah, in addition to the front shooting spot, this back door, we have this whole side panel can be opened, giving you a wider choice of places where to shoot from. My verdict is Trekkle certainly wins in terms of comfort and ease of use, but I cannot say what will be more stable in the Rocky Mountains with a big incline. I would probably bet on a BV in that case. But in what BV definitely has the first place is in its appearance. It is a blast to have in your garage, especially to show off in front of your buddies and do your weekend adventures with them. How many people do you know who have a Caterpillar track in their garage? So if you're not looking to drop a ton of cash on something brand new and you have a bunch of friends to ride with, then it is certainly a perfect ride for you.